Peter M. is from Boca Raton, Florida. His home group is the No Problems, Just Solutions group, and he will be speaking on God is everything or else he is nothing for 45 minutes, followed by a 15-minute Q&A. Peter, thank you for sacrificing your time to share your life with us today, and welcome. Take it away for us.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you for that wonderful introduction. I don't want to say another word after that. I might ruin it. But thank you very much. It's great to be back here. You guys started out, I remember a few years ago, with a different name for this meeting, and I believe I was the first one on the chopping block. And so thank you for having me back. Seems to be yearly I'm here, so very cool way to spend my afternoon. My name is Peter, recovered alcoholic. Grateful to be here. I have an assignment to talk about this topic. I was offered a handful of topics to speak on. I really didn't know which way to go. I took a look at the list, closed my eyes, made a prayer, and here we are. So I have no idea what my Heavenly Father is going to give me this afternoon. June 23rd, 1988 is when God separated me from alcohol. It was a separation done by God. It wasn't a day I quit drinking or decided to come to Alcoholics Anonymous. But I got unhooked from this monster of drinking alcohol, and God had more work to do to get me unhooked from alcoholism, because I've learned, like many lessons, the hard way. My alcoholism doesn't come in a bottle of whiskey. And when I sobered up in 1988, June 23rd, I was really not doing well, even in my first 6 months. Although I had no alcohol or substance going in my body, I was still running around with alcoholism, untreated alcoholism, and I hit another bottom. And hopefully I'll be able to share that with you. As you said, my home group is No Problems, Just Solutions. It's a really long name. By the time you tell somebody the name of your group, they have 90 days. It's a really long name. But it is a great place to be on a Wednesday night. We got there real early last night, and we left about an hour after the meeting was over. It's the music before and after the meeting that I really enjoy, the fellowship. And some of the meetings here in South Florida, interesting rhythm. The meeting ends and there's no one to be found 5 minutes after the meeting. Everyone's out. And I really miss being up north in New York and New Jersey, where the meeting ends and people are just hanging out and fellowshipping and going to the diner afterwards. And I've got to experience that. I found a couple of cool meetings, including my home group, that does that. My sponsor is Bob Azana of St. Paul, Minnesota, and I sponsor a dozen men currently, and so I have a very full life. And just to illustrate real quick about God being everything or else he is nothing, I get in the way of that equation. My mind gets in the way of that equation because a lot of times following the path of God and his intuitiveness that he provides me with, my mind and my ego get in the middle of that because it contradicts. A lot of this spiritual walk is a contradiction to many things I've been taught as a kid, and they're deep rooted. And I leave claw marks, as we've often heard in A, in many things. So I have this business. I've been in my business now almost as long as I'm sober. I'm really 18 years old. I just look this old because of what I do for a living. But, we kind of almost closed doors, and we had this reemergence. And there are a lot of folks who working for me who are doing what I have done for a long time, and they're a lot smarter than I am, very, very well educated, and they're young enough to be my sons, really. And my job is to let them do what they do and pretty much stay out of the way. I have some things I need to do. I'm the founder and put this together, but I have some really wonderful people involved, and it has been a few times very challenging for me to not sit in the driver's seat and drive, because that's all I've been doing my whole career. And lo and behold, my business is doing quite well. And day by day we are growing, and it's just incredible to watch. And that little voice says, I told you, stay out of the way and watch what happens. And God is using these very talented young folks to do some wonderful things. So is God going to be everything or else he's nothing? Now, I can get involved with this anytime I want. It would be more my will to stroke my own ego rather than just playing along and being a spoke in a wheel. I assimilate it to trying to be a big shot in AA rather than just a spoke in the wheel. So I'm very grateful for that. Many years ago, I was actively drinking and taking narcotics, and it was New Year's Eve night, and I remember this almost every year. And I'm rolling through the streets looking to panhandle or steal to get money because I need alcohol and narcotics in my body now. And I'm in serious trouble. My family wasn't too far from where I was rolling through the streets. And I was about to sneak on the subway and go to Lower Manhattan and see what I can do. And it was usually going to be an illegal activity. And when 12 o'clock happened, a lot of folks came out on their front steps and were celebrating, and people lighting off fireworks and people honking their horns in a very festive mood. And I almost had like an out-of-body experience. How the heck did I get here? I feel like the loneliest man on the planet. My family isn't too far from me, indoors celebrating in a warm house on New Year's Eve, and I became an animal in the street, looking for money any way I can get it to get alcohol and or narcotics in this body, because I was hurting if I didn't get it. And it was just one of those moments of clarity, but the drive to drink was much more powerful than any voice I could listen to. What has happened conversely over the years, and by take no credit for this, it's been given to me, that I lean in. I lean in for God. I don't need a bigger God. I just need a much smaller me. I lean in for God. I'm listening for God beyond what my ears hear and go beyond what my eyes are seeing, to experience, okay, God's wholeness in this, and I just need to pay attention. Some things came to me in the meditation that I need to participate, cooperate, and cultivate with God first. I can't experience the all of God in everything, and God's going to be everything or else he's nothing. If I'm not participating, that means prayer, that means meditation, that means being involved, that means giving of myself and be selfless. If I want love, I need to give it. If I want mercy, I need to give it. And so that's part of participating, cooperating. Every once in a while, I'll get that God voice, that nudge to do something that flies in the face of what my mind wants to do. And here it is. I'm at a crossroads. Am I going to cooperate with this voice or not? And I might be wrong, but I'll get credit for trying. Am I going to cooperate with this? Am I going to talk about God and not hide God in a closet because it may not be popular in certain circles? Am I going to talk about this power? Because I have found if I stop talking about recovery, this book, and this God, I'll stop believing in it. And I need to cultivate it and sharing with new people and plant seeds wherever they're asked to be planted. I need to cultivate it in my own home, even when it flies in the face of what my mind is telling me. That's a long way from living in an abandoned building in 1988. It's the conversion that happens for us, or the spiritual revolution that happens for us. I got to be mindful nowadays, am I worshiping God or the part of me that thinks it's God? Because it's a subtle shift. I really think I'm following God. I'm just following my own ambitions. And the thing about this mind and this disease that I have, if it wants to live outside the realm of God. If you can get an idea of that, we got God's realm, and my mind thinks it can live outside of it and do what it wants, when it wants, however it wants. But as Thomas Merton says, to live outside of God is to be unknown by God. And that's way too much privacy. I'm lost and alone in that place. So after 7 treatment centers and getting into Alcoholics Anonymous, again, I take no credit for that. It was just divine intervention. I get taken to Alcoholics Anonymous, and I'm hurting, not only physically, because that went away after a couple of months, but emotionally, I'm in serious trouble. I don't know which end is up. I'm hypersensitive. Everything's a drama. I don't know how to date. I don't know how to get a job. I was living in Minnesota, and the winter hit. If anyone's been in a Minnesota winter, you know how cold it can get out there. And I had my brother's clothes. I was wearing my brother's clothes, and he had, if you guys remember those old members-only windbreakers, I had one of those. The ugliest coats ever invented in the history of mankind, but I had one. And they weren't good for cold weather. And my dad finally sent me some money. And he sent it to the halfway house I was in, and the counselors got it, and they put it in a safe because I wasn't trustworthy at this point. And there was a note, he needs a coat, and they gave me some money, and off I went on a 2-mile walk in this freezing weather to a men's clothes store. And I walked in, the salesman said, "Can I help you?" I said, "I'm just looking." And it's on. I'm petrified. I feel like everyone is staring at me, and women are hiding their purses, and men are protecting their wallets. And I walked around the winter coats and walked right out and went back to the sober house. And my counselor said, "Where's the coat? How did you do?" And I told her what happened. Well, she called this guy Eddie T, who was a big brother to me back then. And Eddie called a few other guys. We got on the druggie buggy, about 8 alcoholics and dope fiends, and show up at this men's clothes store. And I think the owner was reaching for a weapon at this point. And we walked in, and Eddie was a lot further down the road than I was in recovery. He was a real old timer. He had about 6 months sober. And he says, "What size are you?" And whatever size I was, and he says, "Which one do you like?" And I tried on a couple. And I was embarrassed to be fussy. And I didn't want to spend too much money because it was my dad's money. I had the realization it's not my money. And I put on a coat, and I was warm. And I held that coat till about 8 years in sobriety before I gave it to Goodwill. It didn't fit anymore. It was way out of style, but I couldn't give it away because it was so close to my heart. And I share that because with the few months sober, I don't even have living skills to go into a store and buy myself a winter coat. And it wasn't a want, it was a need. I didn't have much God that I was experiencing back then. God was very present. I don't have more God in me now than I did the day I was born or at my worst drunk, but I get to experience more of God. There's a deeper belief and there's a great faith. And the great thing about faith, it brings an end or death to needing to understand. I don't need God on a spreadsheet. I don't need documentation. I just believe. That's it. I have the faith. And so what I needed to have happen to me looking back on it was some sort of experience with God, some sort of conversion. That even though I'm feeling uncomfortable, I'm going to lean into this God because he is everything and I am nothing. The thing about being untreated, when God is some things and not some things, is that I begin to feel like I'm apart from God rather than a part of God. And the great thing about Alcoholics Anonymous, it showed me that I need to just be free of me, not anything else. The alcohol's been taken away. I need to get far away from me as possible. And for this, I'm forever grateful. So there's some things I wanted to share, and I'm probably not going to get to it. But I began to go through the steps with my first sponsor. And we came to chapter 2, the agnostics. And it says, do I now believe or am I even willing to believe? That, not in, but that, a power greater than myself could restore me to sanity. And quite frankly, it was desperation that brought me in here, and even more desperation being in AA for 6 months, completely untreated and almost drinking, that I says, I don't care what this God is, it's got to be better than what I'm doing. And the good thing about desperation, when it screams louder than the ego, I become very willing. Yeah, I believe in something. I'm a cradle Catholic. I always believed in the carpenter. I don't know if he's paying attention to my life, but I'm going to go knock on his door. I have nothing else to lose. There's nowhere to go here. And unbelievable what happened when it said, am I willing to have God be everything or else he is nothing? You know, with a year sober, I can't grasp the depth of that statement and the power behind it. I can't really understand how that encompasses all of my life. I didn't understand how agnostics was setting me up to do a third step where my life was none of my business. But they gently walked me through that. And my sponsor asked me that question, are you willing to have God be everything or else he's nothing? There's no third door. And naturally I agreed, not knowing exactly what that meant. But the spirit of willingness came from God, not from me. And I was able to chop wood and carry water. So when I got to step 3 and it told me I'm going to turn my will and life over to the care of God, again, I don't get the depth of that. That happened over time. That my job belongs to God, my money belongs to God, my relationship, everything belongs to God. Everything goes through God. The mind wants to contradict that. And over time, I started to see the depths of what that means when God's everything else nothing. It's easy to give it lip service. You know, one of the things I can take a look at, I do a job well and I take credit for it. Someone says, you know, nice talk, Pete, and I take credit for it. I do something really good at work and I give myself an attaboy. I have a wonderful marriage to a woman I adore and I take credit for it. I have good friends on the Zoom call men I respect, and I take credit for it. Well, what happened to God being everything? I think it was Bill who said, of myself I am nothing, the Father doeth the works. And if God's everything, I need to be talking about God. It's Alcoholics Anonymous. We can talk about God. There's no tradition break. When we study our history, it all resembled a little religion going on in here. And they made no bones about it. But suddenly, you know, suddenly God has become a 4-letter word, even in Alcoholics Anonymous, in certain circles. Well, I thought God was everything. I'm unmuted. Okay, there we go. And my brother, I was saying he's an actor, and he's very witty, very funny, very charismatic, just a delight to be around. But almost every role he gets when he has a role in a movie or TV show is a dark character with lots of problems, very dramatic roles, or gangsters, which is not who he is, but he plays a role. And when he's done, he goes back to being who he is. When it comes to this recovery, I can't hop in and out of that. I'm going to be spiritual for a couple of hours and then go back to being me. Because our book said God has assigned us a role. And when God assigns me a role, I need to honor that and participate, cooperate, and cultivate that. You know, when I would be on the street, I would play the role of being dangerous and a tough guy because I was so afraid of getting beat up or arrested. I had no problems putting on a different mask back then. And I come into Alcoholics Anonymous, they say, all got to go. And part of God being everything, I'm trying to just make this go live here, is that my past and my past sinfulness does not determine who I am today, who I be today, and it doesn't dictate my future. It just doesn't. There was a time where I held on to my past, and that's why I'm getting what I deserve now. And I was living my story rather than the life God has freely given me. And I have a choice to make. Do I still want to live my story or live my life? Is God going to be everything or else he's nothing? There have been times in recovery where I have been flat broke. Too many times to share with you. It's not that I'm a slacker at work. I've worked hard since I got sober. Flat broke. Not knowing what corner to turn. And I get afraid, and I've even wept a few times on my wife's shoulder. What am I doing wrong? And as a man, I'm sure women get this, but as a man, you feel like I'm a failure. I'm supposed to be the breadwinner. And when I stop crying or stop getting aggravated or stop negotiating with God or stop arguing with God, on bended knees, I say, your will, not mine, be done. You're everything, I'm nothing. That's a lot of heavy lifting. It's easy to God be everything when I have a big fat paycheck. I can cash in the bank and have a new car, expensive cigars, and there's a banquet being prepared for me in my name. That's easy to God be everything. But when it goes really dark, and it's been dark a few times in my life, is God going to be everything or else he's nothing? I can't have God be nothing. In fact, in those spots, God really needs to be everything if I'm even going to survive that. I landed in a hospital in Texas not too long ago. I was supposed to be a speaker, and I landed in the emergency room. I was in there for 3 or 4 days with something called AFib. My heart rate was about 2 billion. My blood pressure was going to blow the head off my shoulders. And I said, where did this come from? I sat near a water fountain and told my wife, I'm in trouble. I'm having a heart attack. And there were 3 people on the committee who were nurses at a local hospital. And off I went, and they told me what's going on. Is God going to be everything or else he's nothing? It would be so easy to get frustrated and stop blaming events in my life or people for this condition. I didn't. I had friends call me because my wife ratted me right out. She told everybody Peter's in the hospital. Like, don't tell anybody. She called everybody. And I prayed. I'm a Catholic, and my wife and I practiced these rosary beads, and we prayed. And we prayed, and we prayed for the doctors. We prayed for the nurses that they have a good day. And that's what we were doing for 3 or 4 days. It was very uncomfortable. Is God going to be everything or else he's nothing? Stuff comes to me in meditation. Sometimes God wakes me up like he did this morning at 3:40 this morning. I'm wide awake and ready to go. And I know I'm going to be tired around 2:30 when I have to do this Zoom. And believe me, I'm falling asleep sometimes when this happens. But I saw something, a quote by Rumi earlier, and he said something like, the morning breeze has secrets to tell you, don't go back to sleep. And so when I'm up, and there's no trouble on the horizon, and it might be 3 or like today, 3:40, I get up. And I come right in here, I have my prayer meditation spot, and I do that on awakening, and I do some readings, and then I have my first cup of coffee. And sometimes in those events of getting up so early, God has planted a seed or put his thumbprint on my heart, and things come to me that I really don't have to write down. I do, but I don't have to. Because something gets very clear, an awakening, a realization, an aha moment, a God wink. And sometimes it's just important to me and to no one else. But something came to me, and it goes like this, what I'm supposed to do, God's going to be everything. And it really flies in the face of everything the mind who's not a God, who's not godly, although I can treat my mind like God and God like my mind. But God flies in the face of thinking. Now, I got to be real careful that my thought life doesn't create my current reality, my God. And it said this, I'm supposed to do this. Admire, but not envy. Support and not take apart. To follow and not imitate. to lead and not manipulate, and to praise and not flatter. And I had to look up flatter and I had to look up praise, and there's a huge difference. That's my mantra. I got participate, cooperate, and cultivate after a 3 a.m. wake up. It's like 4 o'clock and something just comes to me. Oh my God, this is crystal clear. I need to get involved with that. And then I need to put it into practice, because God is everything. Quite frankly, I am nothing. And I'm not being falsely humble or exaggerating here. When I get that very clearly, God can do some work and build. He can move me. But if I'm holding on to me and my ways, ideas, emotions, and attitudes, which are dictating the course of my day and eventually my life, I leave no room for God. I can't stress to you enough how often God flies in the face of my thinking. God has a way of ruining my plans and designs for the day. Number of years ago, my wife and I have worked together for a long time. And we worked for, before I became an owner, we worked for some man who was a chauvinist and treated women as like fifth class. It was just awful. And one day, he decided to, treat my wife that way. And we were dating at the time. And I walked into the office like I would her office at the end of the day. And she was sitting at her desk crying. And I says, what's going on? And she says, I don't want to talk about it. I said, you have to talk about it. What's going on? You're weeping. Please tell me. And she said, the boss was in and he spoke to me in this fashion. And so what happens to me, I go from Moses to Rambo. And to defend her, but really I'm defending my ego. And what goes on in my mind is this. I'm going to retaliate right now. I'm definitely getting fired. I just hope I don't get arrested. What I'm about to do. And I tell Marion, wait right here. I'll be back in a few minutes. And I get into my car and I'm going to his office, and ugly is about to happen. But God ruined it. Because you know that little voice when God like talks, in that little quiet voice, but it's so quiet and yet so powerful. And I get something like this. Where are you going? I start to argue with it. What do? There's a pause. You better call your sponsor. I don't want to call my sponsor. I don't want to listen to God right now. I want to go knock this guy's head off his shoulders right now. Not that I'm going to do that. I can't fight my way out of a paper bag some days. And I call my sponsor, who was Mickey Mustard at the time. He's out of Colorado. And I gets on the phone. I'm talking 100 miles an hour. He says, stop, let's pray. And he prays with me over the phone. Let's do a 10-step. Let's just walk through what's going on. And I tell him what's going on. I understand that. But if you do get arrested, wouldn't Marion have two problems now? He says, shouldn't you be in that office consoling her rather than going out there and acting like a knucklehead without a program of recovery? And he was right. I got out of my car, went into the office, and I sat with Marion, and we talked about it. It was about a month or two later, we were both out of there, and it's got everything or nothing. I started my own business. And it's been difficult. It hasn't been a cakewalk. But I have no one barking at my wife or me in a long, long time. And God's going to be everything, God's nothing. I need to treat people the way I want to be treated as well, even when they screw up. If God's everything or nothing, I can't afford to have plaque on my soul and harbor resentments against people. Or when someone walks in a room, you know that feeling when you get tight when they walk in a room, you get really uncomfortable because they walked in the room. That's got to go, and I'm going to trust God on that here. I'll offer an olive branch. And I will tell you, there's been a couple of relationships over the last couple of years. Me just praying for mercy and forgiveness, and to carry the vision of God's will into that activity. that some of these folks that were, I don't even know if they even liked me, I can say were cordial and even friendly. This is a huge miracle. Is God going to be everything or nothing? I don't want to trust me with anything. I'll trust God who gives me the ability to be trustworthy. I'm an alcoholic. I better never forget that. On my own, I don't do well. I have no designs for living. I have no social skills. But because of Alcoholics Anonymous and loving God, I have a design for living. I have social skills. I'm trustworthy. I can be impeccable with my word as well. That comes to me, not from me. It's a lot easier walk for this alcoholic, as scary as that can be at times, where God's going to be everything, because the alternative is nothing, and I'm driving the bus again. You don't want to get on that bus. Scripture says, knock and the door will open. But if it doesn't open, it doesn't say kick it open. My job is now to wait. And God will say, I'm coming, and you wait, or knock on the next door. That's where I am. I can't do any of that if I'm full of me and my way. Last thing. Some things come to me, and I wind up writing them down in order for me to see clearly what's outside of me. In order for me to hear clearly what's around me, I need to first to touch that power which is inside of me. And that power must be everything, or else he's nothing. So the further I get away from me, the better I am. Most days I like to travel light. My mind would pay any price tomorrow to seek comfort today. And then on Wednesday, wake up with Tuesday all over me. I can't live like that anymore. I just can't. And so my job is to chop wood, carry water, do God's work when no one's around and no one's paying attention. I do it for his glory. I do it because that's what Alcoholics Anonymous taught me. I work with the drunk. New Year's Eve, I was at a meeting. I had a talk to do on New Year's Eve. There was a part of it that says, it's New Year's Eve, stay home, watch some college football. I had a commitment. I need to cooperate, participate, and cultivate. And then something came to me when I got quiet. What if everyone who was sober double digits didn't show up for a meeting on New Year's Eve? And a drunk one day had nowhere to go and walked into that meeting and it was empty. What a horrible picture. So I kept my commitment. It was a packed house. It happened to be anniversary night, unbeknownst to me. And there were a bunch of white chippers there, newcomers. I was glad I was there because God's everything. That's all I got, guys. Peace.
Thank you very much, Mel. Can we see some hands, please? And there, Candy. Candy, could you please your camera on? Could you please put your camera on so I could admit you? Candy, here you are. Aston.
Hi. I was working, but I took some time off to listen. And this was what I needed. I am so inspired. I took so many notes. I'm just flabbergasted, inspired. And Peter, you spoke to me in so many ways about God and about the importance and the developing relationship that I will have with God as this journey of mine continues. I'm a little over a year sober. And I'm just so inspired. Thank you so much for this meeting. It was amazing, amazing.
Thank you.
Oh, I understand Candy wanted just to thank, and I actually was so taken by Peter's talk that I completely forgot the manners, completely forgot to thank Peter for this wonderful talk, and I completely forgot to introduce myself. So, Peter, thank you so very much. It was so very inspiring. I mean, so much food for thoughts. And I am Rasa. I'm an alcoholic, and I'm the host for Q&A today. Reggie, please do come in and ask your question.
Reggie White, alcoholic. Thank you, Peter. That was a very talk. And it brought back to mind to me, because I remember when I was in Lee Agnostics, I'd been about 10 months before I started in the step. We started Never Too Early. And we got to We Agnostics, and we got to that part, and I'm reading, God is everything, or he's nothing. And just like you, I wanted to make sure I knew the right answer to the question, right? So yes, God is everything, And also I wanted to fit in. How long did it actually take you after that initial time when your sponsor said that to you before you really felt that God?
I will tell you that life is sometimes, and circumstances are our best teachers, even better than a sponsor sometimes. And for me, something happened in making amends to my dad. I'm sure it was happening before that, but I sat with my dad, rest his soul. I got to tell you, I've been missing my dad through this holiday season like you have no idea. But I made amends to my dad, and he said something, he interrupted my amends and said something so profound and so loving. And I walked out of that amends saying, thank you, God, you're really with me. And you're with this man who I love and adore. And I got real clear that there is this God watching, as the scripture says, he can count the hairs on my head.
I'm muted. Mike, thank you, Peter. And Mike, please do come in with your question.
Thank you, Peter. That was wonderful. And thank you for changing my recovery over the last couple of years. The question that I have is something you said at the beginning, that you said that if you quit talking about him, you'll forget to believe in him, or something to that effect. How do you handle the pushback that you may or may not get in meetings talking about God?
When I was new, I pushed back, and it became like a debate, a sparring match. I don't do that anymore. This is where this person's at. Need to pray for them. And the other thing I've learned is, I might like chocolate ice cream and you like strawberry ice cream. It's a different flavor, but it's ice cream. And so some people are going to go up the hill one way. I'm going to go up the hill another way. Some people like this in AA, some people like that. My job is to please God, to stay in that light, because that gives me the ability to help another alcoholic achieve sobriety. If I get involved in the debating society, and Bill warns against this, the debating society, then I become part of the problem. God bless you. You don't like God. I'm too preachy. Have a great day. I had a sponsor, Mark Houston, who said, don't let anyone ever read your big book for you. And what he meant by that, don't let anyone contradict what's in that book. So I walk softly and hopefully carry a big book. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mike. And I'm asking Michelle to unmute. That's, yes, the first word that would have taken me forever to pronounce. Sorry about that.
Hi, I'm Michelle. I'm an alcoholic. Peter, I've been following you for years. You've been a huge inspiration on this path for sure. I'm originally from Wisconsin, born and raised, and I lived in Minnesota for many years, so I could really relate to that part of your share. The members only jacket. I can picture that exactly. I have a coat, And it touched my heart when you talked about that coat that was so hard to let go of, because I still have the coat. I got it in 1996, and I remember how warm it felt. And when I put it on, I was going outside to have a cigarette at the treatment center, and I had this new coat down. I can't give up the coat. I still have the coat. And so that really touched me, that somebody else could relate to that. The God is everything or nothing. I just wanted to share also with you, I lost my dad, and I can relate a lot to what you've been going through with your loss. And when he was in hospice, that's what my chant was. God is everything or nothing. I just kept saying that to myself over and over again, and that's what got me through. And I just wanted to thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Michelle. Peter, I have a question from a chat. Natalie, and I asked whether I can use the name, so yes, I can. Natalie asks, she says, I'm 10 months clean and sober. I'm struggling at the moment. I keep running on my will with my life and then running back to God. How do I make God everything? I have so much fear around this.
Am I willing? The way I would look at this, if I was sponsoring a person, I would say, are you willing to have God be everything? And even if at the starting point, if it really isn't everything at that point, but I'm willing to have that, I will grow into that, but I need to do some things. Like I need to be accountable to a sponsor. I need to be consistent in what I'm doing. I need to be responsible. I need to participate in this. And I need to do a daily surrender. And I would tell a newcomer to do that. Surrender to this God. Surrender everything to this God. I may get up off my knees and take ownership again, but I keep knocking on that door. So there's a conversion that happens. As I shared earlier, I got really clear, really conscious, crystal clear in that amends to my dad that, oh my God, it's God. Hopefully that helps.
Thank you. Thank you, Peter. Richard, please do come in with your question.
My name's Richard. I'm an alcoholic. Grateful to be here and be sober. I'm not sure it's a question, but I just wanted to thank Peter. I'm logging in from St. Louis, Missouri. He came and spoke at our banquet at the West County Club.
Yeah.
So thank you very much. I think you did a great and accurate demonstration of what Alcoholics Anonymous is and what the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous produces in our lives. And it took me many, many years in Alcoholics Anonymous to figure out or to come to the awakening that God had separated me from alcohol. It wasn't something that I did. And my friend Derek F., I don't know if you knew Derek from California, he always said, if you're not powerless over alcohol, then you don't need a spiritual awakening. You can stay sober on your own. But I wasn't able to do that, so I had to work the steps. And
Richard, I do apologize. This is Q&A session.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Sue, please do come in with your question.
Hi, Sue. Grateful recovered alcoholic. That was wonderful, Peter. It really showed how you just minimize yourself and just let God just into every aspect of your life. My question is how do you make use of other spiritual texts?
Say again, please. I'm sorry.
That's all right. How do you make use of other spiritual texts?
T-E-X-T, text. Okay. You got a really New York accent. It's hard to, if I was able to walk you over to my desk, which is in the next room, I'm going to guess and say about 12 or 13, maybe 14 books out there. Some of them a page in the morning you read, and a lot of them are religious, spiritual books that I work with. I don't read them, I work with them, but I'm not looking for sound bites out of those textbooks. Something I can go repeat in an hour from now at a meeting and claim it's mine. What I do is I study them, and are they in my life? And I pray over them. Mark used to teach us to meditate on this stuff. So little by slowly it becomes part of who we are. Why? To experience more of God, and I can give more away to a person who's just coming in, or someone who needs a new experience, that kind of thing. I have more to offer because that's my job. That's why God hired me. So I also listen a lot to, there's a handful of speakers I listen to. Most of them have passed on. There's a couple who are with us now, including my sponsor I listen to. I think he's just one of the most profound men in AA. But most of what I listen to is what we'll call outside AA. It's spiritual and religious speakers that really speak to my heart, and for a number of years have opened me up to a lot of things, and new eyes and new ears, which have really dictated some, for me, healthier actions, which I really gets good soul food that way. So God will use everything and everyone to get our attention, to help us grow. I need to follow along, participate, cooperate, and cultivate.
Thank you, Peter.
Mm-hmm.
Pamela will be our last hand, but before I call Pamela in, I have one more question in the chat. It says, I'm finding it hard to believe that God is in this situation with me. How do you see God in your darkest moments?
Yeah. That's heavy lifting. There's no doubt about it. In dark, but we could watch the local news and take a look at the world just in my country and say, what a mess. And I could use that. Our book warns against this as wholesale condemnation, that there is no God in that. So I got to get to a place of trying to find the God in everything. And then something came to me one day. I'm looking to find God out there and make sense of all of this, or find God in my darkest moments where maybe I am supposed to be the God light. And when I started doing that, as difficult as it was, not being able to pay your bills, for example, or getting a health scare, and I'm on bended knee, I'm still looking, God, please show me the vision of your will for all my activities. And the rest is none of my business. I'm not going to lie. It's heavy lifting. I've left claw marks in many things. But sometimes I just need to be the light. Because someone's going to come to me, and they have, who's in a really dark spot, and they're going to ask me, like you just did now, how do you get out? I need to be able to answer that question experientially, not from a textbook and quote something. Because that has depth and weight. Hopefully that helps.
That was an amazing answer, Peter. That was really an amazing answer. Thank you so very much. This concludes Q&A session, and back over to you, Mel.